All right, I just hit the stream button, trying something out, new location inside my home. We'll see how this goes. Doing a real quick little live stream here for the next, I don't know, let's call it 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. Doing a collaboration in 50 minutes. So while I had a few free minutes, I thought I would take some questions, interact a little bit, talk some movies with some people. See how this goes. First in here is Liam OS. Hello. Teddy. Hello. Dark Knight Kid 1204. Hello. Movie Nash. Hello. So, if you guys want to throw over some questions, we can start talking about movies and see where all of this ends up going. We got lots of people joining in. We got Skylar Carson, Aaron Valdez, Tonad. I'm very sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name. So, started to try. And then I totally botched it. Carter Hughes says, have you seen the M. Night movie Devil? So Devil was not directed by M. Night. He wrote the script for it, and I have not seen it, so I have no commentary on it. Okay. What do we have in here? The Banana Stand Podcast. Do you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I have seen a few episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I've seen a number of clips in various places from the show, but I've never just sat and watched a season. So I've seen, I don't know how many episodes, but I have not watched through it. Samad Brown, who do you think is the strongest MCU character? I don't really know. That's not normally my strong suit. It's not as, when you get into like speculation, like who's stronger, and they haven't really, there's not really an objective way to measure that. There's not really I don't have the information to be able to make it. I feel like I'm just guessing. That's not normally my strong suit. So if I had to throw out a guess out there, Thanos just won, so he's pretty strong. Or if we're going with our heroes, Thor seems quite powerful, and they keep just making him seem more and more powerful. But I don't really know. Yeah, that's just not my strong place. I'm sorry, I missed who asked the question, but somebody asked me my favorite Jim Carrey movie. I think I gotta go Dumb and Dumber. Gotta go Dumb and Dumber on that one. It came out when I believe I was in middle school. Just such a funny movie, such a quotable movie, and him at his prime, and all the pieces kind of coming together. But, most of that stuff from about 1993 until 2003, they were pretty much all really good. Reggie Hall, did you watch Titans and Doom Patrol? I've seen all of Titans, and I've only seen the pilot episode of Doom Patrol. Titans, I thought was, I even tried to do a review for it, but I could never come up with my even full thoughts on it, because it was, parts of it were as bad as I was expecting. Parts of it were better than I was expecting. I kept watching it. I kept being interested enough, but other things about it kind of frustrated me. It seemed like every other episode was really good, and then every other episode was like, that was like filler. That was kind of weird what you did there. So I didn't know what I thought about it. And same with Doom Patrol. I was like, this is kind of cool. This is kind of weird. I haven't gone back to watch the rest of the episodes yet, so that's not a good sign. But also didn't watch it and think, I'm not going to watch the rest of these episodes, so do with that as you will. Ginger Snaps 143, do you prefer Nintendo or Sega? They're tough to compare now because they mean wildly different things, and Sega lost the battle in the long run and just started making games, whereas Nintendo continued producing hardware and software. In the specific one where they had a back and forth battle with each other in the early 90s, Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, I think time has shown Sega Genesis was the winner of that one battle. Super Nintendo's a great little system too. There's a very good era for video games. Both of them doing cool stuff. Just Sega Genesis just had a little bit more edge, was trying to do things, be more creative. Tom Kalinske, the guy that was over Sega of America at the time, ran a very cool campaign, did some very cool stuff, ran a great company for about 5 years there, and then he there's a whole book on it. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's a very cool book. Console Wars. If you like video games, check out Console Wars. It's all about Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. Big fan of that book. Went through it last year. Gamer Jacob, did you see the Shazam trailer? Yeah, I got a trailer reaction up for it. Nolan Chambers, do you think Captain Marvel and Thor will be a good duo in Endgame? I mean, we've only got 3 seconds of footage of the two of them together. Based on that few seconds, they got a nice spark between them. For all we got there was like, okay, I kind of dug that. Kind of worked. And so, sure. I mean, I think they'll play nicely together. Lots of people asking me about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Stranger Things trailers. I've got videos up reacting to them, so I'm not going to go back and talk about things I've already made videos about. Javier Gimino, are you going to make a ranking of the MCU villains after Endgame? Yes, I'm going to, after Endgame, the 3 big things that I've got planned for after Endgame would be heroes re-ranked, villains re-ranked, and then every Marvel movie, like X-Men, Spider-Man, all of it. Like I started watching them back in December to rank 50 plus movies after Endgame. So trying to do something I haven't done before. It'll be the biggest video I've ever done. I'm going to rank it like full edited style. So it's going to be a project. It's going to take me hours to film it. It's going to take me days to edit it, but that's coming after. But yes, the heroes and villains, I'll update those ones with whatever new information we'll have, after Endgame. Okie dokie. We got a super chat from Awesome Dude 900. Do you watch the Arrowverse on the CW? Yeah, I've got a lot of videos reviewing the different shows at different times. I haven't really watched Black Lightning. I've watched the first few episodes, but I haven't really watched it. I've watched all of Arrow, all of Flash, all of Supergirl. Actually, Supergirl's a new one. I just caught up on it a couple weeks ago. I'd never been caught up on Supergirl until right now at this instance. And then Legends of Tomorrow, I'm still behind on it. So hopefully I'll catch up on Legends of Tomorrow. So in May, when all the seasons come to a close, then I can review each of the seasons and rank all the different shows with their individual seasons, and rank all of them together to do something I haven't done that full scheme before yet. But yes, I watch them. Supergirls can be pretty frustrating for me at times. Legends is pretty uneven for me. Some are great, some are not so great. Well, I mean, that's kind of the whole CW verse. Arrow and Flash are the 2 easily my favorites that just inherently I've been like drawn to those ones more so than the others. Okay, Simbob, what were the movies you were most disappointed with? Biggest disappointments for me? As time progressed, Star Wars Episode 1 and 2. Both of those ones I went in like really excited about it. And on first watch, I was pretty positive about them. And then time passed and it kind of sunk in. No, these weren't very good. So as time passed, I realized that those ones were more clunkers. I wasn't as... Some people watched Phantom Menace in the theater and they hated it. I wasn't one of those people that immediately hated it when it came out. Matrix 2 and 3 as well. When The Matrix came out, I mean, of course, classic. And then the second one came out, and I wasn't disappointed at first. I saw it, and I was like, all right, maybe, let's see where this kind of goes. And then the third one came out, and what they did in the third one made the second one worse for me. And so because of that, that one was a huge disappointment. And then inside of the MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I know a lot of you love it. I'm not trying to convince you. I don't want to take your joy away from you. That is not, I have no desire to do that. But for me, I watched it and I did not like where they took the characters. I didn't like some of the distasteful elements. It went really dark for me. And so that's my biggest disappointment inside of the MCU. So those are the ones that come to mind. We had a super chat from Vinny Colavita. Thoughts on John Krasinski, Emily Blunt possibly playing Mr. Fantastic, Susan Storm in a new Fantastic Four once Marvel gets the rights. Marvel has the rights. As of last night, it went through at like midnight. So it's not just when they get the rights. They have the rights. It's like all of that stuff. It is official. It has happened. We are in the universe where Kevin Feige has Fantastic Four in his toy chest. What do I think about John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic? I'll go with that one first. I think of the potential comic book characters he could play, well, that one might fit the most for me. I think he's got a little bit of a goofy vibe to him. Maybe that's because I spent so much of my life watching The Office, but I see him as a little bit of a goofy guy in the way his look about him. He seems more like a comedic actor to me. Not that he can't do drama. I don't want to hold that against him. But, certain people, you look at him and they just have a funny, like, they look kind of funny. Even if they're handsome, even if he's a good-looking guy, but there's something quirky about him that lends itself well to the reactive humor of The Office. And so him as Captain America always struck me as like, that seems like a bit of a weird fit, because people talked about him as Captain. I mean, he was like in the running. Like he tried out, was, you know, in the short list when Chris Evans got it. And he's done interviews talking about it too. That seems like a weird fit to me. But John Krasinski is Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic is a character, the goofiness doesn't hold him back. That doesn't feel out of place for him to be a little bit goofy. So I think that would fit. Now the tricky one is also, have we ever seen John Krasinski as a genius before? He does that a little bit. I mean, Jack Ryan kind of is a genius, but so there's a little bit of in the analyst side of that show. So that would probably be our best guess of can he play smart. Because like some people talk about like Chris Pratt being Indiana Jones because he did kind of, you know, Han Solo with Star-Lord, and there's some elements to that character that's very Harrison Fordy. So people have talked about Chris Pratt is Indiana Jones. And the problem is Chris Pratt has always played dumb though. And so the characters that he plays, we haven't ever seen him as like a smart character. I don't think we have yet. So I think if they announced John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, I'd be game for it. Emily Blunt as Susan Storm. Sure, let's go for it. I don't have as many distinctive thoughts on that one, so I think she's a little bit more versatile in her appearance, and of course is versatile as an actress. So let's just go with a yes on that one. Good one, and thank you for the super chat. Okie dokie, got some questions in here. The Senate, thoughts on Revenge of the Sith? Best of the prequels by a lot. The final battle, Obi-Wan, Anakin is fantastic. The opening sequence is pretty great. The general idea of it is pretty cool. The Order 66 sequence is some of the most just tragic, heartbreaking in all of Star Wars. And the fall of Anakin is treated horribly. It's a terrible plotline. I don't think it's good at all. The idea that Palpatine put thoughts in his head to make him afraid that his wife's going to die, and therefore he meets a guy at the opera. Palpatine's like, hey, there was this guy, Dark Force. You can bring people back from the dead. Like, that's all this starts happening, and Anakin doesn't go, wait a minute, this seems pretty suspicious. This is pretty weird. And then, you know, then the way that the turning happens of like, he just, wait, you're the Dark Lord we've been looking for. And then he goes, gets Mace Windu, they go to rescue him, and then suddenly in this moment, Anakin, it doesn't make any sense. It's like a movie that, of all the ways to have him turn, of all even things suggested in previous movies, George Lucas mirroring the things that happen with his mirroring, his repetition, the ideas that he talks about, I just don't think that, like, it just dropped the ball on him. Joe Gardner, are you going to rank the heroes most likely to die in Endgame? Yes, that'll happen in, I don't know, 3 weeks from now, when we're about two-ish weeks out from Endgame. That's when we'll do that. Goose the Cat. Oh, wow, Goose the Cat. I didn't know you could type. Do you think Dark Phoenix will be good? Right now, I don't think Dark Phoenix will be good. Right now. I'd love to be wrong. That's not a prediction that is in any way useful for me to say, I think this movie's going to be bad. So I hope I'm wrong on that. But as of right now, it feels like no. We got some super chats. I actually missed these. It didn't show up in the chat where I was looking. Nate, Sean, love your channel, bro. I know you love to read. What are some of your favorite Christian books, not including the Bible? Favorite Christian books, not including the Bible? I don't know. There's some people that burned me in the last couple of years. So like in their political supporting and things they did that seemed to go contrary to that. I'm trying to think through that one. I think Andy Stanley's written a whole bunch of books on various subjects about grace, about redemptive history, about church and how to leadership type stuff that I thought were really good, and just he communicates very clearly. He's a very efficient communicator that connects with you. So I've liked a lot of stuff. Disagreed with some of the stuff, but I've liked some of that too. I don't know. It's tough to pull them off the top of my head, and also, kind of I don't know, a list of those ones. So like Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology is one that was a very useful book for me. It was this thick, and so lots of theology in there. So that one was one that was useful for me. Didn't like some of the stuff that he said a couple years back, or just allegiances that he placed that I think were very ill-advised. I think Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ, I think, is really good. If you know how to use, some people try and overstates his argument at some point in times, but I think some of it, it's a quick read, or it reads very easily and presents some very in-depth like stuff about manuscripts and things like that. But those that come to mind. Nick with a super chat. Thank you so much for that, but you didn't have a question. Joy Jansen with a super chat. Touched on this a little bit. Were you disappointed with Revenge of the Sith? Okay, so I'll expand on what I said before. Going back to the question. When I said I was disappointed with episodes 1 and 2, I didn't include episode 3 because by the time I went into episode 3, my expectations had lowered. After episode 2, it processed. By the time 2005 hit and we got Revenge of the Sith, I was expecting just a crap fest. Or expecting a disappointment. That's a better way to phrase it. I wasn't expecting crap fest. I'm not that level of hate. I was expecting to be very disappointed. I was expecting it to not be original. So in that sense, you're not really disappointed if you expect it to be down here and it is down here. You're not disappointed. It's just it hit your low expectations. That's the best way to phrase it. I expected low. I got low. And like my friends and I, we started laughing out loud in the theater when Vader goes, no, and walks out like Frankenstein. So, I mean, some of it was immaturity on my part, but, and I'd probably come around on a little bit more. I was probably like peak cynical Sean, like, are you kidding me, George Lucas? What have you done when I watched that movie? So, I wouldn't say disappointed because I went in expecting lower. Super chat from TJT Reviews. Rank all the Clone Wars seasons when season 7 drops. I'm thinking about it. I mean, it's tough because to do that, I have to watch all 7 seasons. It's not like, that's not ranking a set of movies. Most franchises, it's like 10 hours of movies to do the video. Some of them, like the MCU, it's much bigger than that, but they've been coming out, so it's much easier and it's very relevant. There's tons of content that go along with it. But like with Clone Wars, it's like I would be watching so many seasons of Clone Wars just to do one video. So I might do that because my son wants to, and hopefully it'd be a good video. But like sometimes I could watch every single one of those, rank them. I do all of that, and it could be a total bust. Total, like 5,000 views. In which case I spend 30 hours, I don't know how many hours it is to watch the whole show, and I make $7. That's bad. That's a whole bunch of videos I didn't make that people wanted, and I just never really know. Sebastian Blad with a super chat. Thank you so much for that. Will you ever rank the Halloween franchise? I've ranked the Halloween franchise twice, so go ahead and, once this stream's over, go ahead and search Sean Chandler, Halloween ranked. There's 2 different versions. There's a long form version. There's a shorter version of it, so it has happened. You are covered already. All right. Some over in the normal section. Joshua Leving, favorite movie of 2019 thus far. I think I would go with Fighting with My Family and or How to Train Your Dragon 3. Both of those ones, 2 different types of films. Objectively, I'd probably say How to Train Your Dragon seemed to be like quality a little bit better. Fighting with My Family is the one that I'm more likely to rewatch. Sayak SG, The Flash Season 5. What are your thoughts? Better than Season 3 and 4? That's tough. I think three, I think I would still say is the weakest because it just went darker than I think the show needs to go and brooding in ways that I didn't think helped the show. It's not the best face of the show, but both this season and last season have like overcorrected by getting too goofy at times. So I don't really know yet. In theory, I like the Nora stuff, but I'm not crazy about the actual execution of it. Last season had a lot of goofy stuff about it, so I'm not really sure. 3, 4, and 5 are all kind of this mediocre middle for me. So, yeah, we'll see how hopefully it can end nice and strong. Nicholas Micro with a super chat. Thank you so much. Opinion on Disney buying the rights for Deadpool. Well, I mean, they bought Fox, so it's not, it's a little bit more inclusive than just saying they bought Deadpool. I mean, it's very deep what they did. I don't know how that'll play out. I imagine Disney has always owned little pocket sub studios. They've always owned kind of these sub additional studios out there. And some of them have done very adult content. They just don't release them under the Disney. Like, you're not going to see, and then, Deadpool making dirty R-rated jokes. But it's very possible that they would still be like, all right, this franchise is still working. We'll release it under Fox. We're going to reboot X-Men because he's always been his own sort of thing. But who knows what's going to happen. Disney-ified, MCU-ified Deadpool doesn't seem like the best idea, but maybe that's what they were attempting with Once Upon a Deadpool to see if it still kind of works. And if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, you watch Thor Ragnarok, you're getting some pretty gross or crass jokes in there. You're getting Hulk butt. Maybe they've been testing the grounds to see how far that they can push this thing. So it's possible that there could be some interesting stuff happening with all of this. Anthony T with a super chat. Thank you so much. Hey, I'm excited about Quentin's new Hollywood film. How do you think he will keep the comedy with the fate of what happens to Sharon Tate's character, or do you think it will take a dark turn? I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino, so in his first movie, there's like a quirky dance sequence with a guy dancing around, torturing a police officer that gets killed and covered in gasoline and stuff like. I mean, so that's what he's always done. Pulp Fiction, they're riding in a car, joking around, and accidentally blow a guy's head off. And that's played for jokes for the next 20 minutes of the movie. That they're like, how are we going to clean up the brains in the back of the car? So the idea that it's like, man, how are they going to mix this comedic tone with kind of the harsh violence of the Manson family? Well, it's a Tarantino movie. That's what he does. That's his thing. That's what kind of part of what makes him distinct is that he's one of the guys that can make big successful films that go in very dark directions, are very violent, and people eat him up. So, I mean, I think it'll take a dark turn, and I think it's going to be played for comedy at times. So, I mean, Inglourious Bastards, it's about a very violent group of people battling Hitler and scalping people. And, it's World War II. I mean, very dark things happen in it. There's some very funny dialogue in it, and it's incredibly violent. That is Quentin Tarantino. So it's going to be the whole mix of all of it. Oh. Gamer Girl, will you update your Stan Lee cameos ranking? Yeah, so whenever we get whatever's officially announced as the last Stan Lee cameo, then I'll rank all of them, and I left out the TV shows. I think I'll still leave out I'll see how many TV show things there are. I haven't watched some of those TV shows, so I don't like to rank a cameo of a TV show I haven't watched. And I only watch the episode and be like, hey, I watched the episode. So, but yes, that's the short idea. That'll make the final version of it whenever it's official that that's the last one. That's when I'll do that. That's also even a little bit tricky because then ideally I'd want to do it right afterwards to kind of write the momentum. I know it's the best way to phrase that, but also I'd like to have the footage, and I don't have the footage if the movie just came out. So, but yes, that's the plan. Faid Barakat. I'm sorry if I missed. I'm sure I missed that. I'm very sorry about that. What is your ranking of the Men in Black movies? The first one is easily the best by a lot. And then 2 and 3, I think, make very different mistakes. I think they tried to get too clever with 3. And they tried to, let's tie this back. And let's answer this question. And let's work this stuff. And I think by the end of that movie, they convinced me not to like it as much as I had been liking it. Where that movie ends, I was like, this is the bad stuff that you do when you do time travel. This is like, I don't want to know that this is the case. This is not helping the case of this movie. I don't do this. Whereas the second one just felt kind of mediocre throughout. So, but the first one is easily the best of the bunch for me. Nicola NG, is there any other YouTubers that you look up to? I mean, sure. I mean, I'm like everybody else. I was a guy that, at first was working at a church, and just in my free time, I was like, oh, look, people are starting to talk about movies on YouTube. And so I found John Campia through the Collider blog. There's a show called For Your Consideration, and found Stuckman and Johns and watched Movie Talk. I mean, I watched all these people, all the same people that you guys watch in Honest Trailers and, you know, watching some of these different people's things. That's where I went, hey, I can do this too. John Campea put out a video back in 2005, I believe, where he's like, here's how to become like a movie talker person, podcasting, blogging, YouTube. Here's all my best advice. And I watched it when he first put it out. When I started this channel, I rewatched it again to learn when I was actually getting proactive about this. So, you know, all the people that everyone else does. I'm a fan. I'm a watcher of those people too. At times I've supported them on Patreon and different sorts of things. So, yeah, I mean, all the same ones that everybody else likes. Jess Miller with the Super Chat. Thank you so much. Matt Bomber for Superman. Yeah, I mean, he's got the look. He's a little bit on the smaller side for the role. I mean, obviously he's fit. He can get cut. It's probably getting a little bit old for what they'd want to do if they're going to. If it seems like Henry Cavill's not coming back, but I mean, as is Matt Bomber's 10 years older than Henry Cavill. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I know Matt Bomber's older than me, and I'm older than Henry Cavill. So he's probably a little bit too old, but, you know, had they cast him when they cast Henry Cavill, he probably would have done a really good job. Or if they did like a TV show or something like that, then, you know, he could be a good fit there too. Okay, well, browser's giving me trouble. Super chat from Travis Sherrill. Thank you so much. Have you seen The Last of the Mohicans? Yeah, I have seen The Last of the Mohicans. It hasn't been recently. It's, you know, one of those movies that it's been long enough that I don't have much to say. It's like, oh, this was a pretty cool movie when I watched it. I know some people just love it. You know, obviously Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the greats that's still living. But I don't have a specific things. Unfortunately, I can't elaborate to have a deeper thought because it's, you know, been 10 years or something like that. Yeah. Got people asking about Game of Thrones. If you read the description down below, I think it says it in the description. I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I haven't watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't watched Walking Dead, so I can't chime in on those shows. Okay. Questions. Ellie Adams, thoughts on Catch Me If You Can by Steven Spielberg. A very good movie. Excellent movie. And it's something different from Steven Spielberg, because obviously we know him as the adventure guy. We know him as the drama guy. And this one is more dramedy. I mean, it's very funny. It's got a lot of drama to it. And, you know, a chase film in a different sort of way. And so a very cool film. And a movie that really transformed the way people think about Leonardo DiCaprio. So today, Leonardo DiCaprio is just, everyone just respects him and views him as, oh, he's one of the greats, he's amazing. But because of Titanic, he was kind of a joke for a little while for a lot of people. And not really any fault of his own, just the movie, he was a heartthrob, and then he was in Titanic, and so that movie was so successful. Anytime you have something wildly successful, you have the pendulum swing where people then become negative about it. It happens with everything. And so, like, people are like, he's a terrible actor. Terrible actor. That's a pretty strong statement. And then, you know, he did some movies that seemed to be trying to like ride that wave a little bit and they didn't fully catch. And then Catch Me If You Can was when it was like, oh no, this guy's just awesome. And he's been on a great wave ever since then of just respect from people. So, yeah, it's a good one. People asking me about people just keep every single time I do a live stream, it's the same question. Talk about Game of Thrones. Why do you hate Game of Thrones? I just haven't really watched it. I watched the first 2 seasons. I never fully understood why people go so gaga over it, and so that's part of the problem is why I haven't kept watching it. Part of it is I have a side to me that likes to push back on things. So when everyone tells me something's the greatest and I watch it and I'm like, I'm not clicking. I mean, I guess complex stories, complex motives, but it's these shows over the last 10 years that people like just praise as the best, but part of their shtick is kind of torturing the audience and everything that you're like building up to some heroic moment and then they kill off the hero or something like that. Like that doesn't appeal to me at a certain point in time. You're playing against expectations, stops being playing against expectations. It's just what we expect. And then it's just a show that's just so, especially the beginning of the show is just so unnecessarily hard R. When in the first episode, you've got rape, incest, molestation, a midget in a brothel, a guy killing a kid or trying to kill a kid. I mean, it's just like a killing of a dog. And then you're like 2 episodes in, people tortured to death. So some of it, I get the impression like people just like it because it's so different from everything else. That's kind of why. But and for me, even talking about it on my channel, it seems a little bit off brand because I'm not the hard R guy. That's not what I do. I don't use hard language and things like that. So I've thought about binge watching it to rank all the seasons by the time the show's out, but it's off brand, so I probably won't. Got some super chats. Gabe says, "Have you heard of the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon?" Yeah, of course I have. I try and follow all the news, so I have a pretty good idea about all the news just because I follow all that stuff. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to work out. How do you Lord of the Rings on a television show budget? But then again, I mean, it'll work nicely as a TV show because then it gives you more time for your storytelling. So we'll see what happens. Vinny with the super chat. Thank you so much. Best and worst movie sequels. Best sequels, I mean, some of the obvious ones that I would pick would be Last Crusade, Empire Strikes Back, Star Trek 2, Terminator 2, Aliens. You know, a bunch of the stuff in the MCU are technically sequels, so they're awesome. Infinity War, Winter Soldier, The Dark Knight. But, those are ones that kind of come to mind. So some of those are less obvious than others. Worst, there's so many awful sequels. Even if you exclude direct-to-video ones, so many cash grab where they just do I think ones like, well, I mean, I talked about this earlier in here, but Matrix 2 and 3, they hurt the franchise, so that's a terrible sequel. Alien 3, it messes up the mythology of the film before. That's a terrible sequel. That's when a sequel's really bad. Not just because the movie itself is stupid or bad or poorly made, but when they make an inferior film that has stuff that messes up the mythology of the better film. All right, I'm going to close out in about 10 minutes, so ask your final questions. If you have any final super chats or anything, you send them in. I can only go about 5 more minutes because I'm going to shoot a collab with a guy named Austin Burke in about 15 minutes. Rich Reviews with a super chat. Thank you so much. Would you rather see a continuation film for The Wonder Years or Family Matters? What I want a continuation movie. Do I want to pick up and see what happens with The Wonder Years and Fred Savage or Urkel in Family Matters? I think the nature of The Wonder Years makes it a little bit more interesting to me because it was already a period piece. It came out 30 years ago, so it would be a period piece once again. Or not period, I don't know if that's the best way to phrase it. It was in the past. It wasn't set in the current time. So I think that's the one that interests me a little bit more. Fred Savage is really funny too. If you saw him in Once Upon a Deadpool, he was the best thing about that movie. So that could be pretty fun to see him as a 45-year-old man in some sort of follow-up movie. Questions in here. Some of you guys are asking me like, hey, what's your take on Bohemian Rhapsody? What's your take on the Aladdin trailer? So I have videos about a lot of this stuff, so I'm not going to answer them just because my thoughts are already out there in video form. So some of the questions, if it's something where there's a high potential that I've already covered it, that's probably a question I'm not going to answer just because I prefer to use these to answer questions that I don't have a video about them. All right, I missed it, but someone asked, who do I want to be the next big bad villain in the MCU? I think there's 2 paths that make it very interesting. In the short run, kind of grounded year-to-year releases, Magneto, because you bring the X-Men in, ground-level character that shows up in a lot of films sometimes. He's kind of like the new Loki. You make Magneto the new Loki of the MCU in Phase 4, and then you're building towards Galactus. I think that's what you do. But there's a possibility I might have a video next week. My patrons are voting on it. They've got a tight race between 2 videos. One of them are my Phase 4 predictions, so I might have that one coming out next week, or there's another one that's also MCU related that could be next week. Hayden Senster. How's Hutto? I used to live in Hutto. It's growing. I don't know how long ago you lived there, but it is if it's been more than about 3 years, it's growing very, very quickly. We actually have an HEB now, and they're doing massive construction all over the 79 strip in there. There's so much new stuff. We've got a Dairy Queen now. It's crazy, all the construction going on. Oh, here's a good one. George Devaney, what do you think about the Bill and Ted announcement? I'm so worried about it. I am so worried about this Bill and Ted one, because these long-delayed sequels don't have a good history. They have a very bad history for a couple of reasons. That there's a reason that they take so long to get off the ground. That they, you know, if it was just like, we've got a great idea, boom, it just happens, then you had a great idea and you just ran with it. But when they've been talking about this one in particular, like 5 years, they've been making an announcement every 3 months. Hey, we're working on it. Hey, look, we're getting together. We're working on it. When you take 5 years to make it happen, I mean, you know, Keanu Reeves is doing some stuff, but a lot of it is direct-to-video things. None of it is besides John Wick, none of it is as high-profile as Bill and Ted would be. And his buddy hasn't done anything. I mean, he's not, you know, he does a little bit of stuff, but he's not busy. This would be a huge thing. This is his big franchise of his life. So the fact that it's taken so long just means that they're trying to figure out how to do it right. And then just comedy itself is so timely. Even the original Bill and Ted, there's an article written about it about a month ago about how the comedy of it is very out of date because they use a very politically incorrect, at the time it was just like a cute way to talk about homosexuals, but now, I mean, it's a wildly inoffensive slur that you do not say it anymore. And at the time, they just flippantly said, just throw this out there. And it's now like, whoa, they just said that in the movie. And it's really shocking if you watch it now, because how much culture has evolved and changed. The inherent nature of comedy is that it's transgressive. It's living on the edge. So as time passes, you watch comedies from the 80s, the 90s, they do not age well based off of a lot of modern day standards and the way we talk about other people. And so that can be a problem. But then just the nature of humor, it's always so different. And the types of comedies that were made in the 80s weren't made in the 90s. The ones in the 90s weren't the ones that were made in the zeros. And the ones made in the zeros aren't the ones that are being made today. Comedy changes. And so it's just really tough to come back to a franchise and do it again. And likewise, like making the fool of yourself as Bill and Ted, like, yay, doing that stuff when you're in your 20s playing a high schooler doing it, that's one thing. When you're trying to play that character again, when you're Keanu Reeves and you're worth $200 million and you're Neo and you're John Wick, it's just not the same thing anymore. So it's really tough to do that. Okay, I'm going to take just like 3 more questions or thoughts, and then we got to close this deal out because I got a collab in 10 minutes. Justin Villarreal, was it hard to transition from a part-time to full-time YouTuber? No, it's like the easiest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, there's still transitions to it. There's still I'm still trying to figure out how to use my time wisely and how to balance things out. Monday, I woke up at 6 a.m., went to the gym, came back home, and by 7:30, I worked until 3 in the morning. I barely even stopped to eat because I had like deadlines, videos I had to get out, things like that. And then yesterday it was this very light day. And then today's, I've been cranking stuff out, but it's felt like a light day, even though like I've already posted 2 videos on here, one on my Patreon page. I'm doing this live stream. I'm doing a collab in about 5 minutes. So I shot some extra videos for future days too. So I've had this very busy day. So there's a lot of things just getting used to how to balance your time, schedule, deadlines. But not having to go to work is a very easy transition for me. Do you want to stay home, watch movies and talk about movies and just shoot videos like you were doing as your hobby? Or do you want to go to a job where you have a boss telling you what to do? I want to stay home and I want to talk with you guys. Like I'm going live right now talking with you guys, and this is my work. This is part of my job for today. That's awesome. Like this right now, what we're doing is my job and my livelihood. This is awesome. This was not a hard transition. Like, should I go on for about 30 minutes right now to talk movies with you guys? Why wouldn't I want to talk movies with you guys? Why wouldn't I want to answer your questions and have some fun doing all of this stuff? So transitioning to full-time is easiest transition ever. It's just trying to convince my wife I was a wise plan. And then it was coming up with the wise plan. But then once it happened, once I was like my 2 weeks notice, it was like never looked back, never regretted it. And the month has been great. Like, I think we're 2 days away from a month of me being full-time, and it's been a great month. I can't, everything's gone nicely. All the target things I've been aiming for, I've been hitting it. So it's been a great month, and, I'm living the dream, and it's been very cool. There's certain adjustments, but it's been very cool. All right, closing this deal out. Whoa. Here we go. With a super chat from Ryan Vetter. What do you think Empire Magazine will reveal about Avengers 4? I don't think they're going to say anything. If you look at what they're showing in the trailers and how little they're even revealing of the action in those, they're going to tell us stuff that, like, it's the biggest movie we've ever done, and we're having to go places we've never been before, but it's going to be a bunch of malarkey. They're not going to reveal anything, because if they're not showing us Thanos in these trailers, if they're just showing these same teases from the same, like, 5 shots, like the silhouette of them walking, them in the meeting room, I mean, we're not going to get anything, I don't think, from it. Richard Price with a super chat. Thank you so much. Do you watch Supernatural? What do you rank them? I don't think I'm ever going to catch up on it because there's 15 seasons, so I'm never going to be able to rank them. I've seen the first 3 seasons. I enjoyed it a good bit. A nice show that balances standalone episodes with overarching mythology. But my wife couldn't take it, is the short answer. We started watching it right after we had our son, and that's when we watched 3 seasons in a row, right after our son was born. And one of the starting plot lines is a mom being killed with babies right by. So we watched so much of it, and she just... like, let's stop watching it. It wasn't that she didn't enjoy it. There were things she liked about it, but just she doesn't do the supernatural, creepy death stuff. So she ended up nixing it for it. And I never tried to catch up. And it's just a show we're so far behind on that I never will catch up. So it also loses some of the allure of trying to watch it when I can't watch it with my wife, and I'm never going to catch up. So I'm not going to be able to do videos on it. Joey with a super chat. Any movies you ever wanted to see but never have? I mean, not really, because you think about it, if I really wanted, I mean, like, there's a certain sense that there's all these movies that it's like, oh man, I need to watch that. I've never seen that. But in this other sense, there's been a 1,000 opportunities to watch those movies. I just haven't. So that's what makes it difficult. Like, what's the movie with Eco from The Raid? There's one that's on Netflix right now. I haven't watched it. And I want to watch it, but at the same time, I've had 100 opportunities since I learned about it to watch it. 100 nights where I was like, what should I watch? I don't know. I could watch any, and I could have watched it then, but I chose not to. So that's what I kind of feel like with all the movies, that it's like, are there any movies that you've wanted to see that haven't? They all fall into that category for me. Ads Tosh with a super chat. What do you think is the most underrated movie? Oh, that is such a tough question, because underrated is a really, it's a term everyone means something different by it. So one that would come to mind for me that I always mention is Warrior from 2011. Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton, Nick Nolte, Jennifer Morrison, Frank Grillo. It's an MMA movie about brothers, and it's kind of like a Rocky type movie, underdogs and this competition. Fantastic. I mean, it's just some of the best, like, power moments. It bombed at the box office. Nobody saw it in the theater. But at the same time, everyone I know that has seen it has positive things to say about it. So it's underrated in the fact that it totally bombed at the box office. But then at the same time, everyone that has seen it really digs it. And it's got, 80%, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, so critics didn't hate it either. So that's where it's tough to say underrated, because you say underperforming at the box office, underrated by people. It's tough to say. I think most genre films get pretty underrated by the masses because they lump them in and they evaluate them poorly, but that's a very general, broad statement. Road to Dawn with Super Chat. What's your all-time favorite Michael Scott quote? Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something good for the people, you try to stop me. You are everything. Whatever that one is from, was it Game Night? Casino Night, the season 2 finale. Toby walks in and makes the most reasonable thing Toby's ever said. He goes, I don't think we should invite the Boy Scouts into our warehouse where there's dangerous machinery. It's catered by Hooters, where gambling, we're serving alcohol. I don't think we should invite kids in there. And then Michael Scott gives this amazing quote. But I mean, of course, there's tons of other ones I could have picked too. That's just the one that's my favorite episode, and that's the incredible interaction between the two of them. Last super chat in here, Charles Martinet. Thank you so much. You think Avatar movies will be Cameron's last? No. I sure hope not. I mean, by the time he finishes these ones out, he'll be 70. Once the last of these Avatar movies comes out, he'll be about 70 years old right as that happens. If this plays out according to plan, 70, you still got, I mean, Clint Eastwood, what, 87 now? 86? And he's still cranking out a movie every single year. So we should get a couple more James Cameron movies. But I've said this many times before. It is heartbreaking to me. It actually like hurts me in my soul when I'm reminded that James Cameron has spent the last 20 years just doing Avatar. I mean, he's done documentaries. He's been inventing technology. But when it comes to him as a filmmaker, he would be one of the greats of all time. But he just hasn't created enough content to be one of the greats of all time. So he ruined his opportunity. James Cameron, why have you done this to me? All right, I'll take one more question, and then I'm gotta go do this collaboration with Austin Burke. Brad Phoenix, did you watch Alf in the 80s? Yeah, everybody watched Alf back in the 80s, so I watched some of it. Yeah. That's a quick one. I'm trying to find a good closer question. Batwing, I'll close out on this one. Will you rank the Arkham games soon? I don't think so. I meant to. I wanted to. I've said I was going to do it. I own all the games now. The problem is to do it right, I've got to play all of them recent enough for it to be a fair ranking. Because that's what I do with movies. I watch all of them recent enough to be a fair ranking of them. And I played through Arkham Asylum 7 years ago. Whenever it came out is when I played through. I played through Arkham City 6 years ago, whenever it came out. Played through Origins about 3 years ago. So I'd have to play through them too much to do it right. So maybe if I can find a little window, some magic thing will happen. But that's what makes it tough, is that to do it right, I got to do it honestly. And that's very difficult to do when there's so much time passing. And that's the reason that I haven't done it yet. Even though I've hoped to in the past. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully, I'll do a lot more of these quick fire Q&As like this now that I can, and just fire this up. I hope you enjoyed this little corner, this nice little change of direction where we're at. That's my normal setup over there, and I got a new ring light, and so then I'm just experimenting with some new technology type things. Talk to you guys